Hello everybody, Chris here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys the different ways that we can control audio levels inside of DaVinci Resolve 15. So if we want to raise or lower audio levels, there's quite a few ways we can go about doing that. So let's start with the options concerning the timeline. So here we have two different clips that obviously have different audio levels. You can see that because DaVinci Resolve will automatically show the audio waveforms by default. If for some reason you don't see these, you can enable them by clicking over here on Timeline View Options and making sure that Audio Waveforms is checked. So how we can read this is that the closer the audio gets to the top, the closer that your audio volume is getting to the maximum peak volume for your final edit. If it's hard for you to see at all, we can click at the bottom of our Audio 1 track and drag it down, which will expand the height of these tracks and make it more obvious where our audio levels are setting. Okay, so clearly you can see that the clip on the left has higher audio levels than the clip on the right. So one way we can adjust an entire clip all at once is to click on these little horizontal bars you see kind of going across the middle of the audio levels. So if we click on this line and raise it up, you'll see a decibel number. So if it says 5.15 dB in volume, that means we're increasing the volume of the entire clip by 5 decibels. So if we play the timeline back, we should see that the audio when it comes to over here should be 5 decibels higher than when it was before. Note that when you're playing your timeline back, you can see how loud your audio is in terms of negative decibels away from 0, 0 being the peak maximum volume. And we can have this mixer open to show that by clicking on mixer in the top right hand corner. So let's go ahead and play back these two clips a little bit and see how the audio levels mesh up. Okay, so we can clearly see the first clip is still about 10 decibels higher than the second one. The background noise of the city street seems to hover around negative 20 dBs, whereas the first clip was around negative 10. So we can adjust that by clicking on the second clip's audio levels one more time and increasing it 10 more. So if we bring that up to about 13, 14 dBs, we can see now that the audio waveforms on both clips are actually a lot closer together. So if we play them back now, that the audio volume levels shown in the mixer are much closer together. But what if you want to change the volume at multiple points during the clip? So in other words, it might be increased volume at one part of the clip, but decreased volume at another part of the clip. So right around here in this clip, you can see that there's a loud sound. If we play it back, you'll be able to hear it. And let's just say for the sake of argument that we wanted to lower the volume down a lot for that moment. But for the rest of the track, we want to keep that at that increase of about 14 decibels. So let's go around here and zoom in using the timeline. And let's go to the moment where that sound is happening. So one way that we can decrease the sound for this one particular point is going to be to set keyframes in the inspector. So if you don't have the inspector open it in the top right hand corner. And you'll see it'll say under clip volume that it has the volume increase that we had before, but currently it's consistent across the entire clip. So we can have it change at certain points by using keyframes. So I'm going to click on this little diamond here to set a keyframe. And you'll notice in the timeline that that keyframe shows as a dot that is actually movable and adjustable. So in order for this keyframe technique to work, we'll also need to set a keyframe to the right of this point. So I'm going to do that there, set one there. So these are our two high points for the volume where they have the 13.97 increase of decibels. And then we want to go right in here where the sound takes place and add a third keyframe. So with this third keyframe, we can lower the volume down. So I'll decrease it in the inspector, but you can also control it in the timeline. So if I drop this down to about negative 1.65, and you can see that that peak shrinks dramatically because at this moment in time, the volume has gone way low. Now note that that's going to affect every sound that's playing between these three keyframes. And it is really hard to isolate specific sounds that are coming from one audio source. But we can go ahead and play it back here and see kind of how it sounds like. So we can hear that the audio kind of cuts out very noticeably for about a second there. So one thing we could do is drag the keyframes closer together. so that it's really only affecting that moment of impact. So you can do that on the timeline by clicking on these keyframe points and dragging them closer together. So I'm going to do that here, and once more for the right hand side. Note that if you're not careful, that you can actually drag these keyframes down as well, which will increase or decrease the volume. So make sure that you don't accidentally decrease the volume. You can always raise it back up to make sure that the volumes line up. Or if you need to manually set them, you can simply go to the keyframes and type in the value you want in the inspector. So I think we had it at 13.96 before, and over here 13.96. So now we can play this back one more time. And by bringing those points closer together, the fade out is less noticeable because it only happens for a fraction of time. So one other way we can easily affect audio levels in the timeline is to add a audio fade in or fade out effect. And the easiest way to do that is to go to the start or end of a clip, hover over the top left or top right hand corner, and you'll see these little white tabs. With these white tabs, we can drag those inwards of the audio clip, and we will get a slope. So what's going to happen with this slope is that if it's on the left hand side or the start of the clip, our audio is going to fade in for the duration that we bring it outwards. So if we make that 1 second to the right, that means it's going to have a 1 second fade in. So we can hit play here and see how that sounds. So you should have been able to hear that the audio started quietly and then got to its normal levels over the period of 1 second. Note that there are these white circles there that you can use to control the fade. Rather than have it be a linear increase of sound, you could move it up here where it will fade in very fast at the start and then gradually at the end, or you can have it basically move out from the center towards the bottom right, where it will fade in very slowly at the start and then very fast at the end. You can tell that because of the shape of the curve. So if the curve is going to the right faster than it's going up, that means that it's going to slowly fade in. And if it's going up faster than it's going to the right, that means that it's a fast fade in at that point. But leaving it as a linear fade is usually fine too. So if we want to fade out, we can just go to the end of our timeline. So let's play this back without a fade. And then let's add a fade in just by dragging this to the left, about 1 second. And you can hear that the audio fades out. Okay, so let's say now, for the sake of argument, that you have a fully edited video with many clips, and all of your clips, or many of them, are too quiet. So how can you adjust the sound levels of all of the clips without having to manually pull these bars up and adjust them at a clip-by-clip basis? Well, if you open up the mixer, if you don't have it open already, you'll notice that there is actually a slider bar for each of your audio tracks. So if we created another audio track, you would see that pop up here, audio track 2, and each audio track is individually adjustable here in the audio mixer. So what this means is that you can adjust an entire track of audio rather than an individual clip simply by clicking on this audio bar. So by default, it'll say 0, 0. That means no modification to the audio. But if you wanted to increase the volume for everything here, we can just drag that up. So we could set that to something like 5 decibels, which means that everything in this audio track is going to get 5 decibels louder. And we can also decrease it if we want to lower it down to, I don't know, something like -15. So let's try it with plus 5 decibels here and play it back. And what you'll notice is that regardless of which clip we were listening to, it was able to get into this -10, -15 range that it wasn't able to do at the normal background noise. But now it's doing that on both clips because we've adjusted it for the track. Now it's worth mentioning that you can also increase or decrease the audio for everything in your project by going over to main 1, increasing and decreasing that. So one more thing worth mentioning is that if you want to fade audio between 2 clips, whereas one audio fades out, the other one fades in simultaneously, you can do that by using a crossfade. So if you go up to the effects library, audio transitions, and you find crossfade, you can do that at 0 decibels, -3 decibels, and +3 decibels. The +3 decibels makes the audio a little louder during the fade, the -3 makes it a little quieter, and the 0 decibels leaves it the same. So you can just drag that onto the border between 2 audio clips, and you'll get your fade. Alternatively, if you want audio to fade out completely and then the next clip to fade in, you can still do that between two audio clips by dragging out those fade markers. So by doing that, we can have it fade out completely, and then when the first frame of the second video starts, it starts to fade in. So that's about it for the basics of how you can control audio volume levels inside of DaVinci Resolve 15. I've been Chris, I hope you found this video helpful, and I will see you guys in my future video content.